Chapter 3, Part 2. "I knew Cramp fell all right," said the old man, and he laughed again, nodding his head, enjoying some secret joke. "And Mrs. Driver, the cook?" Here the joke became almost too much for old Tom. "Aye," he said, wheezing his silent laughter. "Mrs. Driver," and he wiped the corner of his eye with his sleeve. "Did you know Rosa Pickhatchet?" went on Kate. "That housemaid, the one who screamed?" "Nay," said old Tom, nodding and laughing, "but I heard tell of her. Screamed the house down, so they say." "But do you know why?" cried Kate excitedly. He shook his head. "No reason at all, as I can see." "But didn't they tell you that she saw a little man on the drawing-room mantel-shelf about the size of the china Cupid, that she thought he was an ornament and tried to dust him with a feather duster, and suddenly he sneezed? Anyone would scream," Kate concluded breathlessly. "For why?" said old Tom, deftly sliding back the bark from the wood as though it were a gloved finger. "They don't hurt you, borrowers don't. And they don't make no mess neither, not like field mice. Beats me always as the fuss folks will make about a borrower, screeching and screaming and all that caper." He ran an appreciative finger along the peeled surface. "Smoking 'em out and them kind of games. No need for it, not with borrowers. They go quiet enough, give 'em time, once they know that they've been seen. Now take field mice." The old man broke off to twist his stick, catching his breath with the effort. "Don't let's," cried Kate. "Please, tell me some more about borrowers." "There's naught to tell," said the old man, tossing his stick on the pile and selecting a fresh one. "Borrowers is as like to humans as makes no matter. And what's to tell about humans? Now you take field mice. Once one of them critters finds a way indoors, you're done and strung up, as you might say. You can't leave the place, not for a couple of hours, but you don't get the whole lot right down on you like a flock of starlings. Mess. And it ain't a question of getting them out. They've come and they've gone, if you see what I mean. Plague of locusts, ain't in it? Yes," he went on. "No doubt about it. In an house like this, you're apt to get more trouble from field mice than you ever get from any borrower in an house like this," he repeated. "Set away, like at the edge of the woods. Borrowers can be company, like as not." He glanced up at the ceiling, which creaked slightly as footsteps passed and repassed in the room above. "What do you reckon they're up to?" he said. "Measuring," Kate said. "Mrs. May brought a yardstick. They'll be down soon," she went on hurriedly, "and I want to ask you something important. If they send me for a walk tomorrow, by myself, while they talk business, well, could I come up and be with you?" "I don't see no reason why not," said the old man, at work on his next stick. "If you brings along a sharp knife, I'll learn you how to make sprays." "You know," said Kate impressively, with a glance at the ceiling, dropping her voice, "her brother, Mrs. May's brother, or Miss Ada's, or whatever you like to call her, he saw those borrowers down at the big house." She paused for effect, watching his face. "What of it?" said the old man impassively. "You only got to keep your eyes skinned. I've seen stranger things in my time than them sort of critters. Take badgers. Now you come up here tomorrow and I'll tell you something about badgers you wouldn't credit, but that I've seen it with my own two eyes." "But have you ever seen a borrower?" cried Kate impatiently. "Did you ever see any of those ones down at the big house?" "Them as they had in the stables?" "No, the ones who lived under the kitchen." "Oh, them," he said. "Smoked out they were, but it ain't true," he began, raising his face suddenly, and Kate saw that it was a sad face when it was not smiling. "What isn't true?" "What they say, that I set the ferret on him. I wouldn't, not once I knew they was borrowers." "Oh," exclaimed Kate, kneeling up on a chair with excitement. "You were the boy with the ferret." Old Tom looked back at her, his sideways look. "I were a boy," he admitted guardedly, "and I did have a ferret." "But they did escape, didn't they?" Kate persisted anxiously. "Mrs. May said they escaped by the grating." "That's right," said old Tom. "Made off across the gravel and up the bank." But you don't know for certain, said Kate. You didn't see them go. Or could you see them from the window? Well, I know for certain, all right, said Tom. True enough, I saw them from the window, but that ain't how. He hesitated, looking at Kate. Amused, he seemed, but still wary. Please tell me, please, begged Kate. The old man glanced upwards at the ceiling. You know what he is, he said, inclining his head. Mr. Bequid? He's a lawyer. The old man nodded. That's right, and you don't want nothing put down in writing. I don't understand, said Kate. The old man sighed and took up his whittling knife. What I tells you, you tells her, and he puts it all down in writing. Mrs. May wouldn't tell, said Kate. She's hand in glove with him, that's what I maintain, and it's no good telling me no different. Seemingly now you can't die no more where you reckons to die. And you know for why? He said, glaring at Kate. Because of what's put down in writing. And with a curiously vicious twist, he doubled back his stick. Kate stared at him, nonplussed. If I promise not to tell, she said at last in a timid voice. Promises! Exclaimed the old man, staring at Kate. He jerked a thumb towards the ceiling. Her great uncle, old Sir Montague that was, promised me this cottage. It's for your lifetime, Tom, he says. Promises, he repeated angrily, and he almost spat the word. Promises is pie crust. Kate's eyes filled with tears. All right, she snapped. I don't care, then don't tell me. Tom's expression changed too, almost as violently. Now don't ye cry, little maid, he begged, surprised and distressed. But Kate, to her shame, could not stop. The tears ran down her cheeks, and she felt the familiar hot feeling at the tip of her nose as though it was swelling. I was only wondering, she gasped, fumbling for a handkerchief, if they were all right, and how they managed, and whether they found the badger set. They found the badger set all right, said old Tom. Now don't ye cry, my maiden, not no more. I'll stop in a minute, Kate assured him in a stifled voice, blowing her nose. Now looky here, the old man went on, very upset he sounded. Now you dry your eyes and stop your weeping, and old Tom will show you something. Awkwardly he got up off his stool and hovered over her, dropping his shoulders like some great protective bird. Something you'd like, how's that, eh? It's all right, Kate said, giving a final scrub. She stuffed away her handkerchief and smiled up at him. I've stopped. Old Tom put his hand in his pocket and then, throwing a cautious glance towards the ceiling, he seemed to change his mind. For a moment it sounded as though the footsteps had been moving towards the stairs. It's all right, whispered Kate, after listening, as he searched again and drew out a battered tin box, the kind in which pipe smokers keep tobacco, and with his knotted fingers fumbled awkwardly with the lid. At last it was open, and breathing heavily he turned it over and slid some object out. Here, he said. And there, on his calloused palm, Kate saw the tiny book. Oh, she breathed, staring incredulously. Take it up, said old Tom, it won't bite you. And as gingerly Kate put out her hand, he added, smiling, "'Tis Harriet's diary." But Kate knew this, even before she saw the faded gilt lettering. Diary and proverb book. And in spite of the fact it was weather-stained and time-worn, that when she opened it, the bulk of its pages slipped out from between the covers, and the ink or pencil or sap or whatever Harriet had used to write with it had faded in various shades of brown and sepia and a curious sticky yellow. It had opened to August the 31st, and the proverb Kate saw was, "Earth is the best shelter." And below the bold statement, "Disastrous earthquake at Charleston, US, 1866." And on the page itself, in Arrietty's scratchy handwriting, were 3 entries for 3 successive years. Spiders in storeroom. Mrs. D dropped pan, soup leak in ceiling. Talked to Spiller. Who was Spiller? Kate wondered. August 31st? That was after they left the big house. Spiller, she realised, must be part of the new life. The life out of doors. At random, she turned back a few pages. Mother Bilious, threaded green beads. Climbed hedge, eggs bad. Climbed hedge? Harriet must have gone bird's nesting. And the eggs would be bad in... Kate glanced at the date. Yes, it was still August, and the motto for that day was grasp all, lose all. Where did you get this book? Kate asked aloud in a stunned voice. I found it, said old Tom. But where? Cried Kate. Here, said old Tom, and Kate saw his eyes stray in the direction of the fireplace. In this house, she exclaimed in an unbelieving voice, and staring up at his mysterious old face. Mr. Begwid's unkind words came back to her suddenly. The biggest liar in 5 counties. But here in her hand was the actual book. She stared down at it, trying to sort out her thoughts. You want I should show you something else? He asked her suddenly and a little pathetically, as though aware of her secret doubts. Come you here. And getting up slowly from her chair, Kate followed like a sleepwalker as he went towards the fireplace. The old man stooped down, and panting a little with the effort, he dragged and tugged at the heavy wood box as he shifted it aside. A board fell forward with a slight clatter, and the old man, alarmed, glanced up at the ceiling. But Kate, leaning forward, saw the board had covered a sizable rat hole gouged out of the skirting and Gothic in shape, like an open church door. See? Said old Tom, after listening a moment, a little breathless from tugging. Goes right through to the scullery. They'd got fire this side and water t'other. Years they lived there. Kate knelt down, staring into the hole. Here? In your house? Her voice became more and more scared and unbelieving. You mean Pod and Homily and little Arietti? Them too, said old Tom, in the end, as it were. But didn't they live out of doors? That's what Arietti was longing to do. Oh, they lived out of doors, all right. He gave a short laugh. If you call it living. Or come to that, if you can call it outdoors. But you take a look at this, he went on softly, with a note in his voice of thinly disguised pride. Goes right up inside the wall. Stairs they got, and all betwixt the lath and the plaster. Proper tenement it is. They got here 6 floors and water on every floor. See that? He asked, laying his hand on a rusty pipe. Comes down from the cistern in the roof, that does. And goes on through the scullery. Taps it, they did, in 6 different places, and never a drop or a leak. He was silent a moment, lost in thought, before he propped back the board again and shoved the wood box back into place. Years they lived here, he said affectionately, and he sighed a little as he straightened up, dusting his hands together. But who lived here? Kate whispered hurriedly. The footsteps above across the landing were now heard approaching the head of the stairs. You don't mean my ones? You said they found the badger set. They found the badger set, all right, said old Tom, and gave his short laugh. But how do you know? Who told you? Twittering with anxiety, she followed behind him as he limped towards his stall. Old Tom sat down, selected a stick, and with maddening deliberation tested the edge of his knife. She told me, he said at last, and he cut the stick in 3 lengths. You mean you talked to Arietti? He made a warning sign at her raised voice, lifting his eyebrows and jerking his head. The footsteps, Kate heard, were clumping now down the wooden treads of the stairs. "You don't talk to that one," he whispered. "Not while she's got a tongue to wag." Kate went on staring. If he had hit her on the head with a log from the log box, she could not have appeared more stunned. "Then she must have told you everything," she gasped. "Hush," said the old man, his eye on the door. Mrs. May and Mr. Bigwid, it seemed, had reached the bottom of the stairs, and from the sound of their voices had turned again into the scullery for a last look around. "2 fitted basins at least," Mrs. May was heard saying in a matter-of-fact tone. "Pretty nigh on everything, I reckon," whispered old Tom. "She'd creep out most evenings pretty regular." He smiled as he spoke, glancing towards the hearth. And Kate, watching his face, suddenly saw the picture. The firelit cottage, the lonely boy at his whittling, and almost invisible in the shadows, this tiny creature, seated maybe on a matchbox, the fluty, monotonous voice going on and on and on. After a while, Kate thought, he would hardly hear it. It would merge and become part of the living room stillness, like the simmer of the kettle or the ticking of the clock. Night after night, week after week, month after month, year perhaps after year. Yes, indeed, Kate realised, staring at old Tom in the same stunned way, even though at this minute Mrs. May and Mr. Bigwid came back to the room talking so loudly about wash basins. Arietti must have told Tom everything.